it going, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. Happy Halloween. In case you didn't notice, I'm just kind of going for a very light, natural makeup look today. You know, just a clean girl aesthetic. Nothing too major. But anyways, in this week's video, I'm going to be making Art the Clown into a Monster High character because I thought it'd be fun, and he's having a little bit of a moment right now and I want to capitalize on that, so let's hop right into it.
So for art, I decided to use this Cupid doll, I can't remember what her full name is, as well as this Spectra body that I had. I know that this Cupid doll is like kind of rare, but as you can see, mine is in really bad shape, so I figured she could be donated to this cause. After taking her head off, the next thing that I needed to do was remove this absolutely disgusting, gunked up hair that she had. And so I'm just sawing right through that and then scraping out the inside of her head with a screwdriver to get all the bits out. While I was scraping out her head, I accidentally shoved the screwdriver right through the top of her skull, and I thought that was very fitting for an art doll to do something so gruesome. I feel like he would appreciate putting a screwdriver through somebody, you know. After I was done scraping out her head, I just lengthened that hole that I made to just split her entirely down the center to get out the remaining chunks of hair and glue. After her head is all cleared out, I remove her face using 100% acetone. This was a little bit tricky for this doll in particular because she's white, and so any little bit of paint that was smeared or left over, I just feel like it was so apparent, and I just could not get all this pink paint off to save my life. And also her face was kind of stained, but by the end you don't really notice it. After she has been scrubbed clean of any of her previous identity, I go ahead and return her head to her body and get started on her face up. So once again, because she is so very, very white, I decided to go in with her eye makeup before painting her eyes. That way I'd be able to see what I was doing, because I feel like painting a white eyeball onto a white face would be a little bit difficult, not gonna lie. Because I'm recreating a character, I didn't have to do that much decision making in terms of the design of this face up. You know, I needed to recreate the Art the Clown makeup look on this face in a way that I felt like would be flattering for it. And for her eye color, I did some searching around because you kind of don't see what color Art's eyes are, but in some of the pictures, it looks like he has some beautiful blue eyes. Some beautiful, soulful blue eyes, you know, that you can just get lost in forever. And so I went with blue to keep it, I guess, accurate. I don't know. So there were a few challenges in painting this face, notably the fact that, you know, it's a very symmetrical makeup look. It's like, okay, you got these spikes that need to be kind of symmetrical and even. You have these eyebrows that need to be kind of symmetrical and even. Don't even get me started on the eyebrows, dude. Spoilers, they aren't going to be even by the end. You'll see when we get there, but I think it's close enough. And I was sort of on the fence on if I wanted to keep Art's very dramatic, you know, U-shaped eyebrows, because I feel like Monster High dolls are very you know, fashionable teen girl monsters. And so I was like, oh, would that version have a more pretty eyebrow shape? But I feel like without the eyebrows, you can't change the shape of the makeup or else it doesn't look like him anymore. With the mouth, I try my best to recreate the lip shape the best I could. Obviously, the most iconic Art look, he has that open, toothy grin, but obviously because I didn't change the shape of the doll's face, I couldn't really get that. So I just put a little bit of a hint of teeth in there. I'm going to go back over and bloody that up a bit because I wanted some tooth, you know, but this is like a moody Art the Clown, okay? He's moody sometimes. Sometimes he has a little bit of a stank on his face. This is Art the Clown if he was experiencing teen angst, alright? So for this face, I decided to only put chalk pastels over the eyes to add a little bit of depth and dimension to them, and I kept everything else flat because if you look at Art the Clown, he like doesn't have any shading really. It's just like that flat white face, and I wanted to keep that. And because I didn't want the chalk pastel that I did apply to spread anywhere, I didn't put any sealant on her because that can kind of make the chalk pastel spread a little bit, and I didn't want to like muddy up the white of her face. And if you're putting chalk pastel over acrylic paint, it'll kind of stay there without needing anything. After I got her face all done, I can get to work on her outfit. And yes, I did a lot of sewing for this. I feel like I've really been on a sewing kick lately, and I've been kind of proud of myself. Okay, it's been a lot of fun. So the first thing I made was her top. And to do that, I'm cutting out 2 rectangles of fabric, one that's black and one that's white. And I struggled to get these to be the same size. Like here you can see first I just tried to like measure it out with some chalk. And then when I put them together, the white piece ended up so much smaller. I don't know how that happened. So instead I just pinned the black strip on top of the white fabric and just cut it out that way. And they ended up way more even. I don't know why I didn't do that at first. Listen, I said I've been sewing a lot lately. I didn't say I was good at making clothes, alright? I'm trying my best. And if you notice, a lot of these garments I make are very simple. Like, this is 2 rectangles of fabric that I am sewing together, and that's most of the top. After those are attached, I go ahead and I hem the tops and bottoms of this little black and white strip that I have now. Because I wanted a more seamless look, I went ahead and glued the hems instead of sewing them. And this is me indicating to you that I've also did the bottom as well, not just the top. Once I got everything all sewed and hemmed up, I go ahead and glue the top onto her body. And I know I've been bragging about sewing, and here I am gluing clothes on. I just like how clothes sit when they're glued in place. You know, it's much easier for me to get them to lay correctly. And here's me showing off some black balls. I just go ahead and attach these little teeny tiny pom-pom balls. And then I get started on her neck ruffle. So to do this, I'm cutting out a strip of white fabric as well as a strip of black fabric. And for the black fabric, I made sure to make that strip slightly wider than the strip of white fabric. That way it'll show a little bit underneath when I have them layered. Then I went ahead and hemmed the bottom edge of the white strip of fabric and started doing a gather stitch along the top, which is where you kind of just like weave the needle back and forth without like going back over on itself. That way you can pull the string taut and create a little ruffle effect. And I just pulled the string tight enough so that the inner length of the ruffle would match the circumference of her neck, you know, vaguely. And then I just repeated those steps on the black strip of fabric to get a second ruffle. Once I have 2 ruffles, I attach them together at the top neck portion of the ruffle. And to cover up the sort of messy top portion, I'm attaching a strip of black fabric along the top because his neck ruffle has a little bit up there as well. Once all put together, it looks something like this. After her ruffle is all done, it's time to make her sleeves. And to do this, once again, oh boy, I'm cutting out a rectangle of white fabric and a rectangle. Oh, whoa, a rectangle. I'm so very sorry. I'm so sorry. A rectangle of black fabric as well. I'm sure these steps are starting to look very familiar. It's a lot of rectangles for this outfit. And once I have 2 rectangles, I sew along one end of of each little rectangle and create 2 tubes, because sleeves are just tubes. You see what I'm doing here now? Like, I avoid using patterns all the time because my brain is small. And so instead of being like, how do you attach sleeves to a shirt? I just don't. I just break everything down until eventually it all just becomes sewing rectangles together, because right now, that's what I can wrap my brain around. Here, I'm taking another rectangle and I'm pleating the top to create the bottom layer of her skirt. So for her skirt, I decided to mirror her neck ruffle, but instead of having white on top, I'm putting black on top this time. When I was making the black layer of her skirt, I decided to try out these little teeny tiny clothespins that I had in my stash that my mom gave me a while ago, because I saw somebody recommend using sewing clips in one of my previous videos, and I don't know if this is actually what they meant, but it sort of worked. It like shaved a few seconds off of, my construction time. Just like with the neck ruffle, I attached the skirt pieces together along the top inner circle seam, and then I'm adding a piece of white fabric to cover up where they join. And I feel like I did this in a really fuckardly way, but I just like folded it over the top and then pinned it in place, but I couldn't get it to quite lay right, but I think it turns out okay in the end. I ended up with something like this, and in case you're wondering, yes, I also glued this skirt piece in place. I added a little dab of glue, like where I wanted it to be sitting in the front, and then glue it together in the back. And I will say this to you. If you come to my house and you look at what the backs of my dolls look like, you're a hater, okay? They're only meant to be viewed from the front. The back is gonna look messed up every time. Speaking of which, I'm cutting out 2 more rectangles for her sort of leg sleeves. And at first I was going to sew them and create little tubes, but I realized the pieces I cut weren't big enough for that, so I just glued them in place, and it looks very bad back there, but just don't look at her from the back. Once her outfit is done, I'm finally finished cutting out rectangles, and I can start working on her hair. And for this, I'm preparing some yarn in black and white, because I'm gonna do a little like half and half, split down the middle ponytail moment, okay? So before I started gluing her hair down, I went ahead and mapped out where I wanted her part to be with a Sharpie. So I'm just drawing a line down the center and then marking out where I want her bangs to be. And for the record, I'd already decided I wanted to give her bangs before her eyebrows came out a little wonky, okay? I'm not just trying to cover up my mistakes, I swear. So for gluing down her hair, this time I tried a different method than I usually use. I just went in with hot glue and smoothed it out using a silicone thimble, because I think I've seen Hextion do something similar, and honestly, this worked great, and it took way less time and was way easier to control than my Mod Podge, so I might be trying to do this a little bit more often. So after I got one side glued down, I went ahead and tied it off to keep it out of the way, and then I add the white side, and here you can see I gave her these little poofed out ponytails, and I put a little white streak in her bangs to help bring that color scheme in, and I don't know. I just thought this would be cute for her hair, because we don't know what his hair looks like. He wears like a cowl over his head, so he could be bald under there, who knows. So I really could do whatever I wanted for her hairdo, and I think this is cute. Also, look at this great footage of me just covering up everything with my hand. But yeah, for her bangs, I kept it really choppy because I thought it'd be fun and playful that way. After her hair, I can start working on her accessories. So now I'm making her little teeny tiny hat because that is entirely necessary to achieve the Art the Clown look. So I'm taking a piece of construction paper and just rolling it into a little tube that I will be eventually gluing in place. And I'm going to take a moment while I'm working on this hat to say that if you watched this far and you liked this video, consider liking it. It really helps me out a lot. And if you have any thoughts, feelings, or onions, let me know in the comments below. But mostly if you're nice to me, please be nice to me. I cry very easily. Also, if you want to see more videos like this from me, consider subscribing. I have a lot of fun things planned that I can't wait to show you. So here I'm mapping out a rough circle for the brim of the hat. And as I cut this out, this little template I made, it like does not matter because I basically completely ignore it after I try it out because I made it way too big the first time. Once I get the circle relatively the correct size, I put my little tube on top and just fill it with hot glue to hold it in place. And then I trim it up some more to try to get it to be the right proportions that I want. And then I add more hot glue on top to sort of fulfill the top part of the hat. I don't know how to say it. I didn't want to cut out a second circle, so I just filled it up with hot glue. And then I touched it, which I don't know, bro. I was making choices, but eventually you end up with a hat, okay? To create the little band around the hat, I cut out a very thin sliver of construction paper and I just glue that in place as well. Honestly, if you were smarter than me, you would use a different glue for this process, but you know, I historically love using hot glue even when I shouldn't be. And once it's all constructed, I go ahead and paint it black. To be able to attach the hat, I go ahead and glue it to this piece of black cord so that I can tie it around her head and keep it in place because I feel like that would be the closest to how his hat is in the movies. And once it's on, I slide it a little bit farther over to be fully on the white side of her hair. For her next accessory, I wanted to make Art's little trash bag that he uses to carry all of his murder implements in because I feel like when you get a Monster High doll, they always have like a little purse, and so this is kind of like her little purse. So I took a piece of real trash bag and just glued the sides together and stuffed it full of little pieces of tinfoil as well as paper towel just to help bulk it out and give it the correct shape. To cinch the top as well as give myself something to attach it to the doll with, I go ahead and use some more of that black cord and just tie a little knot. For her final accessory, I decided to make a hacksaw because I thought that'd be a fun murder implement to give my Art the Clown doll because, well, there's a very iconic scene in the first movie where he uses a saw very heavily. And I just made the base of the hacksaw shape with some hot glue and let it dry, and then just molded the handle a little bit more to make it easier to fit in her hand. I know the shape of the hacksaw is a little bit like whimsical. It's not entirely realistic or anything, but I kind of wanted to go for a more cartoony feel with this weapon, more so than some of the other ones I've made, because I wanted to evoke that Monster High doll feel more so than I did with some of my other characters. I just wanted to look a little bit friendlier, you know. And next I'm making the saw blade. So to do that, I'm using some more construction paper and I cut out a little strip and just kind of measure it out and cut little serrated teeth into the construction paper to create the saw blade. Once I get the serrated teeth all cut out, I go ahead and line it up on the base of the hacksaw and get the blade glued in place. I don't know, I'm just kind of in love with how cartoony it came out. I'm sure some of you might have preferred if I went a more realistic route, but sometimes I just want to keep it cute, okay? Next, I base out the hacksaw with some black paint, and once that's all dry, I go over it with some metallic silver. So I debated heavily on if I wanted to add any blood to this project at all, because usually I'm a big fan of blood and grime, and that would be fitting for an Art the Clown doll. But because I wanted to stay more in the Monster High realm, I decided to forego most of the grime and only put a little bit of blood on the hack blade and not on anything else. And he usually starts out the movies looking clean anyways, so this is like her before the murder spree. And she's complete. Here are the final results. I think she came out so cute. I'm so happy with her little accessories, and I think this is a very different direction for what I would have normally done for this character, but who knows, maybe I'll make a grimier, grittier version another time. But that's it for this video. I hope to see you all next time. Love you, bye!